You're listening to TG1F, an F1 podcast with Kate and Nicole.
We're your hosts. I'm Kate.
And I'm Nicole.
And this is our show where, you know what? Let's do something a little different.
Welcome to TG1F's Read an F1 Romance Novel Month.
F1 romance, author interviews, book recommendations, oh my.
Join us for a month-long celebration of F1 romance authors and the stories that get our hearts racing.
Because while F1 drivers are filling their shelves with trophies, we're filling yours with F1 romance novels.
Who are we talking to today, Kate?
Turn the page and find out. Welcome to the podcast, Becka Caffrey. We are so happy to have you here.
Hi, guys. Yeah, I'm so excited to be here. Thank you.
How are you doing today?
I am good, thank you. I have had a little bit of caffeine to keep me awake, so...
It is a little late for you, huh? I'm sorry. Thank you so much for staying up late and having fun with us. I noticed your sweatshirt and I'm assuming it says in your Formula One era.
Does.
Yeah, love that. Formula One reading era, love that. Iconic as always. But why don't we just kick it off? You give us a little bit synopsis about the plot of your book, what it's about, the main characters, what people can expect from it, spice level. Give us the elevator pitch.
So, Pole Position is a queer Formula One romance. It is set across the length of a full season, so you get all of the Formula One action as well as some behind the scenes footage as well. And it's about a veteran within the sport who is everyone's speculating about whether he's about to retire. He is trying to get back into kind of his golden age. And just as this is happening, his best friend and fellow teammate breaks his leg 3 days before the season's meant to start. And so you can imagine how great that is when he gets that phone call from the team principal, like, yeah, he's broken his leg. He's not going to be in for a while. And the call finishes with him finding out that a rookie from Formula 2 is stepping up. And this is when we meet Playboy party animal Harper, who has a little bit of a reputation, and he is Kian's worst nightmare. Like, he is everything he hates about the people that have let the sport get to their head a little bit. And he's a little bit like his dad, who is also a racing legend, but is again kind of known for his partying animal ways. And that's where it all just like kicks off. And as you can imagine, what comes next is just complete fireworks and them having to learn to live with each other for the next 9 months whilst they're on the road traveling.
Oh my gosh, I love it. I'm like, have goosebumps. Like, I'm like, okay, don't stop talking. Tell me more. I want you to tell the entire plot to me right now. One of my favorite things is that Pole Position, your book, has been described as red, white, and royal blue meets Formula One. First of all, iconic. Two of my all-time favorite things. So that is like, I mean, that's the elevator pitch. That's all you had to do to get me interested. But tell us more about the queer representation in sports and kind of how that impacted your work and this book.
So Red, White and Royal Blue, firstly, legendary book, one of my absolute favorites. And I hope that Pole Position really captured that rivals to lovers kind of banter, especially with the fact that they're both British. So I hope that that's been really captured in that kind of essence. Queer representation within the book is one of the main focal points, obviously, within the story, considering the relationship, but it's also on the outskirts as well, within the side characters, and also with like members of the team around the guys that are part of the Henderson team, which is the name of the team in the book. So the people that support during the races, like the race engineers. So it is a focal point within the story, but something that I really wanted to capture was not the essence of like the coming out story. I wanted it to be more of a normalized story in that it's just an everyday, day-to-day relationship. It's nothing to be like shouted about, in the sense that just because they're in a queer relationship, it's to kind of just capture the normalization of it and to see kind of two openly queer but in very different ways characters, whereas Harper is quite loud and proud, which is amazing. Kian is more quieter about it. He's never someone that will deny it, but he isn't straight away open and honest about it. And I think it's kind of capturing how those two then work in a relationship when one of them is so used to drawing attention to himself and the other is very much like shy away from the attention despite being one of the legends within a big sport. So it's kind of capturing the two different essences, but I wanted to just normalize it and have it be quite a focal point without it being like this book is just about two gay drivers. So I hope that's
And
what I got from it.
I'm sure that's probably going to be some sort of point of contention within their relationship as well, right? One of them is very vocal about it and one of them is not. I think that that's always interesting to kind of consider, but Kian is involved in a storyline involving Parkinson's. Can you tell us a little bit more about that and what inspired the specific storyline? And what do you really hope that your readers take away from this?
So, unfortunately, a few years ago, I lost my grandma to Parkinson's. So,
I'm so sorry.
that's something that's been a big part of my life for the 12 years of her being diagnosed, and then obviously losing her. And I find that when I read a lot of like fiction, a lot of stories, I don't often or if ever see this kind of disease mentioned. And I also don't even just like in the media, like there has been more about it recently with sadly quite a few celebrities being diagnosed with it. But growing up, it wasn't a disease that I was aware of until my grandma received her diagnosis. And I feel like it was just something that I really wanted to highlight because it can have like a massive effect on not just the person suffering, but also the people around them, the family, the friends, especially if your person suffering is quite stubborn and doesn't want to accept help. So I hope that in the book, one of the things I wanted to do was kind of first of all raise awareness for the actual disease, but also raise awareness for the people who are around the disease and the people that are looking after and caring for their relative or their family friend who is suffering, because I watched my mum go through that for many years and saw how much of an effect it had and how hard it was. So I wanted to kind of try and capture that, and also just to kind of like give like a shout out to the people that do it and how strong and amazing they are. And that's kind of like what a big part of what Elise, who is Kian's sister in the story, she takes on that carer role, and you see her giving up like essences and areas of her life to be there for her mum, because her mum doesn't want the outside help, doesn't want to bring the world into her home. So it does become quite a family kind of caring for her. So that's the big part of like Elise's like role within the story, is she's a massive family person and a massive caregiver as well.
I love that. Were there any real life inspirations you drew from your own experience to write Elise's character?
I think maybe not so much from myself, but a lot from my mum. Like, I think I was like only like 13, 14 when my grandma was diagnosed. So I was still like a teenager living at home. And I watched my mum kind of like drop essences of her life, like a bit more of her social life and kind of gearing her day around my grandma and looking after her. And I think growing up like that, obviously that was massively kind of inspiring for me because she was such a massive caregiver, and she took such good care of my grandma. And I think Elise kind of was born out of watching my mum being that caregiver. Like obviously she was caring for me and my brother as well, but seeing that like the going the other way as well.
I love that.
That's beautiful. I think that's a really inspiring storyline, and I like that you kind of were able to take your experience and put it in here to kind of make something beautiful come from an experience that was, I'm sure, really, really hard. And I hope that your mom is also feels, so nice when she reads this book and is like, "Oh, you noticed. I feel like sometimes when people kind of see that, it's like really nice for them. So I love that you were able to do that.
Yeah, I wrote like a little dedication in the front of the book, which like was kind of like mostly towards my mum. So that's the only part of the book she's read so far. And she was quite teary about it. So
Oh,
I love
I
that.
love that. So kind of taking a little bit of a step back, you wrote this book that is surrounded or highlighting Formula One as its kind of main driving force, pun intended. How did you originally get into Formula One? Is it something that you've been a fan of for your whole life? Was it Drive to Survive? Kind of how did the fandom first start?
So I grew up in quite a sporty family. I feel like it was often on the TV. I played football or soccer when I was younger, and then I played netball. My brother played football as well. So I feel like I was always surrounded by the sports on the TV, watching my family play or playing myself. So I've always been in that kind of sporty mindset. I grew out of wanting to play when I was like late teenager. But then I feel like as I went into adulthood, I started to discover other sports that had maybe not been on the TV as much when I was growing up, and such as ice hockey and women's football, and then Formula One. And I became quite a casual watcher. I wasn't like watching every race, and I definitely wasn't watching like free practices or anything like
Mhm.
that. And then I feel like I just grew into watching it slightly more and more all the time. And then I think it was kind of starting to see it on social media as well. And I think when you kind of get to know like a bit more about the drivers, the way I kind of had with like footballers growing up, it was kind of more, it more like draws you in. And then I watched Drive
Yeah.
to Survive, and I was like, I'm watching every race, every
Yeah.
is every sprint, like
It really sucks you in. One day you don't know anything, and then you blink, and you're like, "Oh, 7 days a week. I'm
lit.
doing something about this."
So now, yeah, I feel like I'm just like I feel like it takes over your life, like,
It does.
and when you're writing
You're
based romance as well, like you're really watching,
You're in it.
like
Yeah.
you're preaching
You're
to the
like,
choir
"No, I'm
about
watching this I'm watching Charles Leclerc's, Monaco vlog for research,
exactly,
okay? I'm writing a book. This is for research. It's to get in the mind. It's not it's
literally.
that's it."
it.
But I feel like been watching like YouTube clips on like slow mo to like catch things, and I'm like, do normal people do this for research? Like,
I
These normal
love that.
people
How
do.
fun.
We
I
do,
love
and that's all that matters. So so you kind of became ingrained in the sport. You loved it, but what was kind of the inspiration behind writing a Formula 1 specific romance book versus say just like a regular romance book?
So I think it was just kind of combining two passions. Like I have such a love for like sport in general. And then I have a massive love for writing romance, especially queer romance. And I feel like it was just literally combining those two. I had quite an unconventional journey into publishing, I guess. Like I wasn't looking to traditionally publish when an editor reached out for me, and I think we were just very much on the same wavelength from like Cool One, and we were just talking about Formula One and like an idea for a book, and I was like, I love Formula One, let's write this. Like so it was just kind of combining the two like big loves in my life, but it was also that Formula One is such a different sport in comparison to things like football or rugby, in the
Mhm.
sense that the relationship between the drivers on a team is so different, because they play as a team for the
Yeah.
constructors, but then they're also rivals, like they're playing
Yeah.
for
Mhm.
themselves. And I think that, especially writing a rivals to lover style story, that relationship and that kind of like parallel between being a team but being for yourself makes for such good like writing, like so good.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
love that. It's interesting too because I mean, I've never really thought about it that way, but compared to other sports too, like a football team or a rugby team is so many people.
Yeah,
And so you have like but with Formula One, you have one teammate. You're kind
Exactly.
of like stuck with that
Yeah.
person. You're doing media day with that person. You're traveling with that person. You're in meetings with that person. So I feel like that is such a different dynamic in terms of like a sports romance. That's so interesting. Oh man. It does. It just leads itself to such good stories. I'm like,
It really
how are more of
does.
these things not happening? Maybe they are, and we just don't know about. But I'm like, how are these not happening all the time? Uh, was there anyone? I feel like this is a question that comes up, especially for sports romances, because a lot of people have such an affinity for the sport and the real life characters and players and athletes, that when they read a romance novel about that sport, they're like instantly attaching one of their favorites to
Yeah.
these characters. But was there any real life inspiration behind any of the characters in the book that you were like, oh, so and so is gonna have this person's features a little bit, or was it kind of entirely people that you made up?
Surprisingly, it was just a lot of like my own just imagination. I think Harper's maybe got a touch of the Lando Norris personality in that he's quite charming and a little bit of a party boy, like, but outside of that, no, not really. I think I've had people like message me on Instagram, like, is it based on these two characters? Like, and I'm just like I've actually never even thought of like that specific person being Kian or being Harper. So it is really interesting to see how people have like kind of like fan casted the characters.
Uh,
But sadly, no, just all in my imagination. I'm not quite sure where it came from, but
I don't think that's sad at all. I think that's like incredibly impressive. If
It's
I was
kind
to
of
set out to write a romance novel about Formula One, I don't think I would have the creativity or the imagination to come up with my own characters. I'd be like, okay, well, this one's Charles, obviously, because I love him. And then the female main character is me. Uh,
just put yourself in there.
yeah, exactly. I'm like, I'm just writing a fan fiction. That's fine.
I love it's kind of fun though to have people send you messages about like what different aspects of people they see in your characters, because it means that it's really resonating with them and the people that they love. And so I think that's such a fun part about art, being subjective and like connecting with certain parts of people that you really enjoy. So that must be special to have people take time out of their day to even ask you the question if this is, one of their favorite drivers, to be like, "Oh, she must love them as much as I do." I love
Yeah,
that.
I think that's been like a massive part of the book. It's only been out like a month, so or 2 months, and I think that's been like a massive part of the journey. Is first of all connecting with other Formula One fans. I think it's like that's been really nice, like to meet other people, even just virtually, who are so interested in the sport. But to get those messages, yeah, it's really special, and I think it's like you write that book on your own, and then you put it out into the world, and you kind of forget that people are going to read it. Like, so it is lovely to kind of have that like that broken like four wall and getting to like speak to other people that have read it and enjoyed it. So that's really nice.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that. So you are an author and you have this book that has a bunch of different kind of tropes in it, and is there any trope that you've written that is your favorite to write? You're like, if I could only write one trope, this is going to be the one. I love to do it. And on the other side of the coin, is there any trope that you haven't written that you're dying to? You're like trying to find kind of that idea to be able to write a certain trope.
Yeah, so that enemies to lovers trope is just I think will forever be my favorite. I think
Yeah,
there's
it's
something
so
about
fun.
it, like it's just everything. Like to I think I really enjoy reading and writing that like witty banter and the slowly moving away from it, and like just the little changes in there, like, and then maybe like just looking at the other person thinking, okay, maybe they're not that bad,
Yeah.
like, and that
Yeah.
slow transformation from being like, I hate this person, to being like, oh, okay, like that's nice about them. Like, so I just love writing that. It's my absolute favorite. But on the other hand, I've never written anything so far like with the fake dating trope. And again, I just think the situations that could end up in and the situations of to why that could come about could be so fun to write. It's just finding that idea that maybe hasn't been done yet, or putting a spin on an idea that has been done. So that is something I'd definitely love to write in the future.
So fun. I do love that one. I do love a fake dating. I think it's like it's so silly. I feel like it's more of like a rom-com vibe because
Yeah.
you're like there's just so many like comedic moments that can come out of
The
this.
hijinks.
Yeah, the hijinks.
Yeah.
So,
I love that.
so speaking of future potential tropes, do you have any plans for future F1 novels? Is this going to be part of a series? What's kind of the vision?
I think one of my favorite things about writing in general and writing this book is that I just love writing a big cast of characters. Like I can't be someone who just writes like, oh, this person's got one friend and no family. Like
Yeah.
so Pole Position has quite a vast array of characters. So I would never say no to revisiting some of them in the future. You never know.
I love that.
So fun. Well, when we read it, I will be messaging you and saying these are my favorite side characters, and I actually have to know what happens next. So maybe we can have a brainstorm.
I've had
A
a
brainstorm
lot of
session.
that, shockingly. Like, I've had quite a few people being like, so is this person getting a book? And I'm like, well, you never know.
Like maybe. I love it. So we're gonna do a quick little rapid fire, fun questions, to get to know you a little better. So first one is, who is your favorite F1 driver on the grid right now, and what is your favorite team?
I'm a K-Mag girly, so Kevin is just my
Fun.
favorite. Like, I just think there's something about him. Like, he's very underrated. Like, he's not having the best couple of seasons, but I just think he's a fun driver on the grid. He brings the entertainment. He brings all the penalties as well. So,
And
and
he does not care about it. He's like,
absolutely not.
whatever.
He's not bothered. So I don't know
It's
why he's
inspirational.
who I'm drawn to, but yeah, it's been that way for a good few years now. So, and in the same essence, I'm a Haas girly. So like, and I just, yeah, I feel like we're having a reasonably good time at the moment. Nico's doing really well, so we might
Are you
Yeah.
excited
do quite
for
well.
Ollie to join the team
Yeah.
next year?
Yes, I was so excited to see that announcement. Like, I'm trying to imagine K Mag staying and him and Ollie being on the team. I'm not quite sure if K Mag is
It's
that
kind of giving
nurturing
pole
character.
position a little bit.
Yeah, it's a little
Giving
pole position. It's giving a veteran driver with a rookie coming in.
I'm not sure what kind of influence Kevin would be on him though. So, oh, but yeah,
Yeah, he's like, here's how. Yeah, always learning how not to get penalties
yeah,
by
basically,
watching K-Mag. Yeah.
100%.
yeah. So outside of F1 romances, what is your favorite book or book series right now?
So my all-time favorite is the Heated Rivalry series by Rachel Reed.
Okay.
It's a queer hockey romance series.
Mm.
And it's kind of set in North America, and it follows kind of different characters around. And there's two quite main characters, and they've got two books. So she went back and like wrote a sequel for them because it was like so in demand. So I think yeah, that was kind of like the first book series that I read set in like a sporting world, which like really made me fall in love with it. The writing is really good, and I don't know, I'm really like such a sucker for a book that's set over a long period of time, and Heated Rivalries is set over about 10 years, like just the one
Mm,
book.
Wow.
So you really
Wow.
get to see that like
talk about
character
a slow
development,
burn.
a real slow burn, but in a really good like keeping you like sucked in kind of way.
Ooh,
Yeah.
great recommendation. Adding to my TBR immediately. That
Yeah,
sounds so
so
good.
good.
I do love a slow burn, but sometimes I'm like, okay, kiss already.
I think because you get like, not to spoil anything, but you get a sprinkling of what's to come in the first chapter. So it's kind of like, okay, like this has got you
Oh,
gripped.
it gets you right away.
Like, yeah, it's
Then it's a
Okay,
slow
then you're like, well, now I have to keep reading to get to that point
exactly,
because I
exactly.
know it's a little
what's
tease.
coming.
That's good marketing. Good marketing.
Feeding you all those tidbits. So,
okay, and our last question is: if you were to go on The Amazing Race, which of your characters would you want to come with you as your partner that you think would like really complement your skill set and help you get the win for $1 million? It's $1 million, right?
this is a tough
Yeah.
one. I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it would have to be Elise. Like, I think first of all, she'd look after me when I'm not having a good day. Like, she'd be putting those plasters on my blisters and like making sure we're good. But she's a mum, so she's very much like organized, on top of it. I feel like she'd really like just keep us going. She'd make sure we weren't like getting lost or like losing things. Like, I think she would just keep us very much like on track, but she's also like used to being motivational for her kids. So it's like I feel like she'd be giving me those words of wisdom when I like didn't want to do it anymore. So
I think that's a perfect answer. That's perfect. That sounds actually I've like never thought of bringing someone for more of like the mental side of it. So I think that's a great point. Well, thank you so
Well,
much for
Becca,
coming on this podcast.
thank you so
This was so
much.
fun.
So we had the best time. Now we're going to hand it over to you to kind of tell people where they can find you, where they can find your books, what they can expect next out of you, and anything that you want to say to the people listening to this episode today.
So you can buy Pole Position, which is out now on any kind of good bookstore, Amazon, Barnes & Noble. If you're in the UK, there is currently a lot of signed copies floating around. So, because I have been busy. So, you can find it anywhere online as well. Literally, pretty much every store has it at the moment. So, and you can find me on Instagram and on TikTok under Rebecca J. Caffrey Author. And yeah, that's it. I'm really excited for what's in the works at the moment. Maybe a little bit more Formula One and maybe a little bit of a different sport as well. So yeah, I'm excited for
These are
exciting.
Okay, well, we are also equally as excited for that.
I'm excited. Yeah, no, thank you guys so much. This has been so fun.
Thank you.
So much fun. We'll be doing this again, especially your next book. Just pencil us in for the press rounds, okay? Just pencil us in. Make sure we're there.
I will do. Thank you.
Perfect.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of TG1F, an F1 podcast with Kate and Nicole.
If you like what you heard, don't miss out on the fun between episodes.
Keep up with the chaos on Instagram at 2 Girls 1 Formula. That's spelled out TWO Girls numerical 1 Formula.
And check out our website, 2girls1formula.com, to shop cute fan-made F1 merch.
See you next week.
But like we said, in the meantime, we'll see you on the internet.